Hello and Namaste. This is Dr. Srinidhi Chidambaram. Welcome to the COVID Care series presented by Apollo Hospitals. Save one life and you're a hero. Save 100 lives, you're a nurse. So before we get into the session, let us take a moment to send our gratitude, greetings, and love to our nurses. As today is International Nurses Day, our angels in scrubs heal the heart, mind, soul, and the body. Apollo Hospitals has always put our nurses right at the forefront. You can see that in our logo, it is the nurse who carries the flame of hope and healing, and it is he or she who plays such a major role in healing the sick with tenderness and care. Thank you, dear nurses. You are a true blessing to humanity. With the COVID pandemic sweeping all over India and many states having lockdowns too, normal life has taken a big hit. Anxiety rules us, but it is even more difficult for people who have to travel and to commuters as well. Not everybody can just stay safe at home. They do have to travel either within their city or they might have to travel out by train or bus or by the flights even abroad. Traveling is a known risk due to increased chances of exposure to the COVID infection, but there are safe ways of commuting both within your city and also when you're traveling. To discuss the key aspects of traveling safely during the COVID-19 pandemic, we have with us Dr. Ravi Kiran Abraham Barigala, who is an infectious disease specialist working at Apollo Hospitals, Jubilee Hills, Hyderabad. He has over 13 years of experience. He has done his MBBS from the Osmania Medical College, Hyderabad, Masters in Public Health, Western Kentucky University, US, MD in Internal Medicine from Chicago, and the MD in Infectious Diseases from the University of Wisconsin, US. His special interests include resistant bacterial and fungal infections and viral diseases like COVID and HIV. Hello, Dr. Barigala, and welcome to this FB Live. Let us begin with a short uh, discussion from you on tips on how to travel safely during the COVID-19 pandemic. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Srinidhi. Thank you, Apollo Hospitals, for giving this opportunity to talk and to share with our audience today. Welcome, everybody. And I echo what Dr. Srinidhi said about the nurses who are our frontline warriors, really. They do everything here. I mean, the doctors just write medicines. They are the ones who actually make the difference. And we are who we are, I think, to a great part because of a great nursing care. So thank you all the nurses today. Thank you for joining live today. And we will be just talking about COVID and mainly talking about the traveling part with the COVID pandemic. And there are lots of challenges these days. Pandemic is just raging on and on. India is going through a big second wave right now. One of the world's highest numbers have been reported here now. The last year when we came to 1 lakh, we were really scared. And this time we've crossed 4 lakhs for several times now. Deaths have increased and several states have put lockdowns in place, either a complete lockdown or a partial lockdown with night curfews, weekend curfews, all sorts of combinations, travel between states and cities, and definitely internationally is very, very limited. So as you know, COVID is not going away anytime soon, and we cannot just be in our homes all the time. The lockdowns are a way to stop in an acute situation when the numbers are so high, and the governments are taking a call on when to do it and when to relax. But at the end of the day, we have to have certain safeguards in place to know how is it spread and what can we do to decrease the spread of this infection. And as you know, COVID is a respiratory illness. It spreads from one person to another, mainly by close contact and by respiratory droplets. So if you are close to somebody who may have COVID, then you will be more likely to get the infection, especially within the first 1 to 2 meters of distance, maybe 3 to 6 feet. So like in my OPD, I have seen thousands of patients now, and all of these patients, they are not allowed to come close to me. They're only allowed to be at a distance of about 3 to 6 feet from me at all times. I don't like them coming at all close to me. Unless there is a reason that I need to examine them or do something else, then I'll come close to them and then I'll examine them. But at other times, we just keep our distance. Most of the stuff can be done. So the same principles you can use as you travel too. If you don't come close to anybody, you are safe. So whatever ways of travel and whatever ways of living that we do, if we keep ourselves away from others, we are at a safe distance and we are in a safe zone. But many times during travel and in our other situations, we are forced to come closer to other people. Like, let's say you're traveling in a bus and somebody comes and sits close to you. You cannot just say, well, you sit far away. You're in a plane, every seat is taken there. You just cannot say you can move. So what do we do in those situations? We have to be careful in knowing what are your options, what are your risk strategies. So I will be talking about risks involved in all different types of travel and what can you do to decrease your risk in every one of those situations. So I'll just go through about 5 different travel options. First one is if you're traveling on a bike, on a motorcycle or a scooter, and you are by yourself. That is one of the least risky ways of getting COVID at this point. You wear a mask even when you're traveling. Suppose you are in a more crowded situation, you don't know. That's why we always recommend, even when you're outside, you still wear a mask. Anybody who's outside for any reason should wear a mask. But that risk also is extremely low because most of the time you're really traveling. You're not sedentary, you're not congregating, and nobody really comes so close to you because you're traveling on a bike and everybody maintains a safe distance because it's a moving vehicle. So that is one of the least risky types of travel. The second one would be, next one up would be probably a car. So if you are traveling by a car by yourself, this is again a very, very low risk. I use my car every day. I drive myself. I don't have a driver. And that has protected me a lot. Okay. If there is any other person in the car, especially a person that you do not know, let's say you're taking a cab, you have no idea what that cab driver has. So then the risk actually goes up a little bit, especially if you keep all the windows closed, the AC on, and both of you are not wearing a mask. In those situations, the risks will go up. So if you are traveling, let's say in a cab, a taxi, then again, it's really important to wear a good mask. If possible, keep the windows down. Autos, auto rickshaws, things like that, those are also the same way. And it works pretty much like a car with the windows down. It's very roomy, airy. So the risk of infections is very, very low in those situations. So if I travel...
Sorry to interrupt. I just had a question there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. This is just in the autos or in the taxis, which we are discussing. Do people also have to sanitize it before getting in? Because we see people carrying around those sprays, which they try to sanitize.
Yeah.
Is it required?
Right. I don't really recommend that. More research, the latest research has shown that the risk of transmission through fomites, which is through articles, surfaces, is extremely low as 1 in 10,000 now. So I don't do that. I don't really clean up everywhere. I mean, in a hospital type of setting, that is different because you're actually seeing a patient who is a known patient who are coughing. Then the risk is a lot more. But other times, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you spray everywhere. But what I would recommend is don't touch unnecessary surfaces. And when you do touch like the door handles or something in the car, which are touched by many other people, maybe at that point, sanitize your hands. That is more important than the surfaces. Surfaces don't give you anything directly. If you touch everything and then you touch your face, that is more risky. So try to limit you touching other things and touching your face when you're traveling. That's a general principle no matter how you travel. And so next one would be traveling by, let's say, buses or by other public transport, like a metro or something. So in those situations also, it is in some ways actually much better to travel in a non-AC bus because it's all open. The doors and windows are open. In those situations, the risks are lower as long as there is no overcrowding in the buses. If it is overcrowded, then the risks again goes up even with doors and windows open. If you're really close to somebody this close and somebody coughs on you, you have not much protection. At any point though, you still wear a mask. That is why masks are such an important aspect of any type of travel and protection against COVID. The next would be trains. Trains, again, general compartments, general ones with or second tier, whatever, without windows, closing ACs. Those are again in a way safer. But long distance is hard. So be careful in those situations. Wear masks as much as you can. There will be times in long distance travels you will have to take your mask off. It's just very hard to keep a mask on for a long distance journey. Sleeping, those times it's just very hard. So be careful at those times. And the next one would be flights and airplanes. The flights are also actually relatively safe. They have a filtering system where the air is filtered through HEPA filters. And most planes have that. That kind of removes the viruses that are floating around. But it doesn't protect you from somebody who's sitting right next to you who may cough. So you still wear a mask as much as possible. Maintain distance if there is an empty seat. If not, you try to stay safe. Don't touch other surfaces. One tip that I would tell you while traveling either by train or bus or by flight, if it's a short flight, train, bus, you're not really eating anything. But if it's a longer flight, most people will be required to take off masks and eat. If possible, try to eat at times where nobody else is eating. So if everybody eats at the same time, of course, in a flight, everybody served meal at the same time. But if everybody eats at the same time, I think the risks increase because everybody's taken out the masks and invariably most of the time they start talking to people while they're eating. So be careful in those times. Sometimes a staggered meals are better in some ways, or you take a precautions, you eat later after others are done, or eat fast. So these are some general principles for travel and safety. Most important ones are the masks, social distancing, and just taking some general precautions in terms of hand hygiene, hand sanitizers and those things.
So, doctor, would you say that it is actually, unless there are extenuating circumstances, one should avoid traveling? Sometimes you just want to travel to, because you just want to see someone for social contact, or you have to just visit family,
Right.
or sometimes it's like unavoidable circumstances. So, do you think it is advisable to travel for leisure and social purposes?
I think you should limit it, especially in our Indian context. So we're not talking an international context, but in an Indian context, the pandemic is raging right now. And who will get an infection? We have no idea. And if you get an infection, the options are very limited at this point. There are several challenges that we're facing in terms of admissions, drugs, oxygen, manpower. And it varies in different states and different cities at this point. But don't put yourself in a situation, let's say you travel somewhere into an exotic place, it's a really nice place, but they don't even have medical facilities there. So it will be a challenge. If you fall sick, what will you do there? You don't have backups, you don't have family and social support systems to help you in those meetings. So in that situation, so I would really say, try first of all to defer those travels. I had a patient one time, um, some time back, who was planning on going to Kashmir. He had booked that months in advance. It was going to be a special occasion for everybody to congregate and then travel, and they had hotel, flights. It's a big deal. Several lakhs worth of uh, transaction was involved. But I said, it is a very risky transaction at this point. Why do you want to put, everybody through that? Traveling, staying together, meals, everything is very risky. So I advised against it, and he actually took it. So, and do it at other times. Couple months back, I would have given a different advice. But right now, this is not safe. Let's wait until the second wave kind of comes down. There are more safety, there are more resources available. Then I think more options for travel will be there.
And I'm sure now most of these bookings, they do allow flexibilities on air
Yes.
bookings as well as hotel bookings. So I'm sure we can look at that. But sometimes it's these weddings and
Yeah.
such regions where people somehow are tempted to go. But I guess one has to be safe. Doctor, what are we've already spoken about the flights. I have recently recovered from COVID-19. So when can I travel or can I travel? So is it safe for them and safe for others?
Yes. It depends upon how far are you planning on traveling. In some cases of COVID, your lungs are so badly damaged. I have told my patients to just stay here, not to even go outside the city limits, because they are so fragile at that point. They are out of town, they've come here just for treatment. I have told them not even go back to their hometowns, because your situation is not stabilized yet. If such an unstable situation is there, better not to go other places. And also in those situations, don't travel for leisure. If you have to go back for work or that is your hometown, take advice of your treating physicians. They will be able to assess you and tell you, have your lungs recovered? Has your energy level come back to that level? And if you are fit, then you can travel. I wouldn't advise at this point just to travel for leisure for even post-COVID recovered patients. Their oxygen saturations may be low, their energy may be low. One patient I had who wanted to go, and had a genuine reason. So I had to put that patient in a wheelchair and then send. He was a young boy, but I said, no, you cannot really travel right now. I mean, you will push yourself too hard. So you stay in a wheelchair and then you travel. So you have minimal exertion. Otherwise, your risks of oxygen dropping and bad complications will be higher.
If somebody is traveling together as a family, as in, a few elders and kids and parents and so on, do they have to take any special precautions when they're traveling as a group for other members of the family?
You just have to take the same basic precautions. You can all be together as a family. Let's say a family of grandparents, parents, and the kids are all living together. So their risks are pretty much the same because they have been living together. But let's say the family members are of different homes and they don't necessarily live together, and they all want to travel together. Maybe even from the same city, but they are from different contexts and they're just going for, let's say, a wedding together, right? So in those situations, I think they should still be a little careful with each other in terms of how close they come, taking masks off and talking more personally and closely. I think you should be a little careful because you don't know what the other person has. People who are living together, they have a very intimate knowledge of symptoms on a day-to-day basis. People who don't live together, I think you should still have safety.
Doctor, could you tell us something about once a person has reached his destination or has come back, what kind of quarantine measures? And there is also this question many people have on, do they have to get tested? For example, if somebody from a house where there are other people living and they have traveled and come back, is it required? What should they really do? Should they stay isolated? Should they be tested?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Any point anybody is traveling right now, you're at risk of getting infected, and you're at risk of passing the infection on to somebody else. One of my family members is getting married in US next month, but we decided not to travel because we thought we would be putting everybody else at risk. Because there is a raging pandemic, it's a long distance flight, and we might get infected. And ideally, in such high risk situations, you should quarantine yourself for several days, okay, without necessarily exposing yourself to others. And if you just go and get a PCR or a COVID, whatever type of COVID test, it may not necessarily pick it up right away, because COVID testing is really positive only after 3 or 5 days of even you catching the infection. So immediate COVID test is of really no value. It may not pick up anything. Many flights, actually international flights, almost everybody right now mandates that you need to have a COVID negative test within 3 days, 72 hours of the travel right now. So those guidelines are there before you even get onto the plane. Once you land, you have to be really judicious in terms of who you're exposing and how much you're exposing. Let's say there are some people who are elderly or at high risk of COVID. It is really not safe to expose them to such a high risk scenario, because you may even be asymptomatic. There are several asymptomatic carriers and you may pass it on. And there is no test in the world that can really detect it in the first 3 to 5 days with certainty. You may get symptoms later on, but you will pass the infection on to somebody who may be more immunocompromised.
So even for domestic travel, if somebody has taken a flight to, for example, one of the cities in India, within India, and has come back, even then, the same with the current pandemic, I guess the same rules apply, right?
Exactly. In many states and cities have mandated COVID testings within travel to India. Like Delhi, I think is advised or requiring testing for people coming from different states. I think Maharashtra, a few other states are also doing that now. And it is risky. The reason what they are doing is they're trying to discourage people from traveling. And that is really why they are trying to put so many hurdles in a way, so that not everybody would travel, especially unnecessarily. And that is really the reason they are doing that. No test is perfect. No test is 100%, but they are trying to discourage you from traveling unnecessarily. If you do have to travel, you have to take precautions. Let's say somebody is sick in a different city or state, and you have to be there, or somebody is dying or dead, you have to go and be there in those situations. So be careful in those scenarios. One other thing that I would tell, in death and dying, there are lots of deaths right now. Lots of funerals, cremations are happening. People who are attending those and coming back are definitely at a high risk. You have no idea. Many times, actually, the funerals are really, cremations are for COVID patients itself. So several people may be positive whether they show symptoms or not. When you're traveling and you come back, there's a high chance you could bring the infection home. So be extremely careful when you have to attend those and have to come back home.
So once you come back home, how long do you think they should they remain isolated in a room, or should they just not expose or be together with others, like for example elders and kids in the family?
Exactly.
How many days should they observe such precautions?
The complete foolproof way is really 14 days of quarantine. That's what we used to do last year when the pandemic first started. People who were coming from foreign destinations, high risk, like China, UK, Iran, everybody was put in for 2 weeks quarantine in mandated quarantine centers, but then they relaxed it and then said you have to be in a home isolation. I don't know how many people really followed that, but that is
starts, yeah.
best case scenario. Others have relaxed it to maybe 7 days. Some other countries, like even Thailand, have said if you're vaccinated, you only need to quarantine for 7 days. And that does make sense. If you're vaccinated, your risk of catching an infection, transmitting the infection, all of those are lower.
So about 7
14 days is the ideal quarantine period.
But at least not exactly in a room, but making sure that you're not exposed to other people.
Exactly. Especially to vulnerable people. Somebody who's at high risk. A younger person, even if they get it, the risks are lower. But elderly and other immunocompromised patients, they might suffer more.
There's also this question which I was actually wanting to ask you about using gloves. Now, we often see people in airports and other places walking around with gloves, but I've also heard that gloves actually can be more risky if they're going to touch themselves and dispose it properly. We see sometimes a lot of gloves just thrown here and there on the road also.
Yes.
What do you have to say about using gloves during travel or commuting?
Right. I see a lot of patients and many of them come wearing gloves. I work in a COVID hospital. I have seen thousands of COVID patients. Every single day I see COVID patients. I have never worn a glove. What is more important is hand hygiene, hand sanitizers, and cleaning your hands. Whenever I touch patients, whenever I'm touching high risk surfaces, then I clean my hands. And almost in any situation, I do not touch my face with my hands without cleaning my hands for sure. Once I'm eating or other situations, I make sure that I clean my hands properly. Only then I will touch my face. Wearing gloves only limits your hands from getting the bacteria, the viruses. But if you have a glove on and you're touching your face, you're actually increasing your risk. Somehow people feel a little bit more safe when they're wearing a glove. It gives you a false sense of security.
Absolutely.
They're very less likely to use hand sanitizers on gloves. I see very, very few people doing that. Like 10% or less of people who wear gloves use hand sanitizers versus majority of the people, probably 80-90% of the people use a hand sanitizer if they are not wearing gloves, which I feel is a lot more important. So if you wear gloves, you can, but I don't think it makes a difference. Or you have to keep taking off the gloves every single time, and that is just not practical. Every time you touch a surface, you have to take off your glove. It just doesn't work out.
Also, doctor, when people are traveling, there's always this question as should I take some medications with me? What should I carry with me in terms of COVID safety and prevention? I suppose sanitizers, yes,
Right.
but masks, yes, but other things like should they carry a pulse oximeter and a thermometer or other medications?
I wouldn't suggest just for the travel part, but it depends upon your destination. You're going to a place where they may not necessarily have that. I think then it is wise to carry that with you, so to keep it with you. Like I have it at work, I have it at my home, my parents have it at their home. Wherever we go, we make sure that we have these supplies just in case we need it. So wherever you are, I think it would be better to have these in case you get stuck or in case something else happens.
Yeah.
Like
go out and buy them
down
sometimes.
and you're stuck.
Yeah. And sometimes you can't go to you may not be able to go and buy one even if it's available.
Exactly. There are severe shortages of these. Several places are not having even a thermometer or a pulse oximeter. Also pulse oximeters, different qualities of pulse oximeters. If you have a good one, keep it with you and then travel. I think it makes sense.
What about food, doctor? Like we spoke about food while on a long distance flight, but what do you do if a person is traveling and is going to stay at a hotel or is constantly on the road? Where should they buy and eat, or should they carry some food with them? How safe is that during the pandemic?
If you're traveling a short distance, taking your home food is probably the best option. You're traveling by car or a train and it's just a short distance, but it's a longer distance flight. It just doesn't make sense. So you will have to probably take something, whatever is given on the flight or train. or you have to buy something wherever. If possible, I would say it's not the type of food, but when you eat it and where you eat it is more important. Eating with everybody, let's say a large cafeteria is there, everybody's eating together, that is a risky scenario. I would rather tell you to take the food, go sit in a more isolated place and eat by yourself, or eat as a family together rather than eating with everybody. So a separate place and eating at different times, those are probably more important than what type of food it is. The fomites are really not the way that you're really getting the infection.
Yeah, people are scared about those boxes and the parcels, and they keep
Yeah,
sanitizing.
that is really not. I get parcel pretty much every day into my house. We really cannot live without those in this day and age.
And also the COVID itself, I think the food-related transmission is not there, so it doesn't
No, it's
matter.
really not food or water. It's not like drinking a coffee. Is
A lot
going
of
to,
these myths about that you must eat only like very well cooked food, you mustn't eat salads, you must. There are so many people talk
right?
these kind of.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, even I was one of those people who
Yeah.
talk about those things last year when we didn't know better, when we didn't know how it would transmit. So we took a lot more precautions. We advised people to just wash everything really thoroughly and only then eat that. Don't order. We did a lot of things which made our lives miserable. But as we have learned more things, we don't need to do that. I eat in a hospital cafeteria every day when actually nobody's around. I'm the only one eating. I eat last and I'm safe. I've never got COVID and I'm safe in terms of what I eat. Everything that is there, I eat. I eat salad. I love salad and I eat it. I've not gotten infected.
Doctor, now we will take a few questions which are coming in live from our Facebook Live session. So the first one is, if I get my COVID test done before traveling, is it required to get a test done after reaching the destination in case I get infected during the travel? Also, what is the wait time for getting the results?
Yeah. So several states and in our governments, I think, are mandating that if you are coming in, that you have to do a COVID test on arrival. And once that is negative, only then they're allowed into the country.
But that's, of course, like it's there for international, but not for domestic, not
Not
all,
for domestic.
not all states.
Not all states. So those situations in a domestic scenario, again, as I mentioned, even if you get a COVID during the flight or train or bus, whatever mode of transport, if you do the test right away, the chance of you finding it is pretty much zero on day zero. I mean, it really doesn't happen. That's not how COVID transmits and can be detected. If you get it positive, you got it probably several days earlier. It wasn't that travel that gave you the infection. So the ideal way is to do testing only after a few days, not right away. And ideally, you should be in an isolation setting. And that is why all this family get-togethers and weddings, that is the reason people are falling sick. Because nobody has symptoms when they all get together. Everybody knows and they're smart enough, they're not going to have a person who's coughing dance at your wedding, right? So you're going to put that person away. But the person who is not coughing and mingling with everybody, that is the person transmitting the infection. And most people, almost all people, are asymptomatic in the first 3 to 5 days, but they can still transmit the infection.
So taking the test after a few days is what is advised. And regarding the time, I guess most centers give you the results in a day.
Yeah, mostly in 1 to 2 days. It depends upon the place that you're in.
How safe is children to travel during this period?
A lot of people ask me about children of getting COVID. What are the risks? Children are one of the least risky group of people among all age groups of people. It's the elderly who are the most vulnerable. Second is more maybe middle-aged with some comorbidities. Now we have started to see a few young adults, but very few. Children, extremely rare for them to fall sick or to die or to really be needing hospitalization. Most of the children will be fine. Actually, the younger they are better off in a way, other than like small babies, less than 1 year olds. those type of people really shouldn't even be going out. I don't see any good reason a baby should be traveling in this pandemic.
Which brings us to the next question. A 1-month baby wanted to travel from Bagdogra, Siliguri to Chennai. Is it safe for the baby to travel, as currently we are not seeing any COVID cases in the little ones?
Yeah. A 1-month-old child cannot tell you that the child wants to travel. It's really the
Just
parents
tell
who
the
really
baby, no,
want.
you can't travel.
So really, I would not suggest that you travel unless you are coming back to your hometown. Maybe you went to visit to Bagdogra, to Sikkim for travel or something else.
Or
And
maybe post-delivery, sometimes people travel back.
you're coming back to your hometown, and you should, and you need to. And I think you should take appropriate precautions and you should come back. The risk to the child is very low. The problem with such young children, babies, is there is no mask that can be kept on children.
That's true.
It's impossible. As 1-month-old child, there is absolutely no mask. You can keep a cloth. The babies will chew that. There is nothing that can really protect them. So you really have to think through. Probably children more than 5 years old or so, they can be taught to wear a mask and keep a mask on. But that will work only for a few minutes. I'm a parent of a 5-year-old. It's a challenge to keep that mask on for more than 5 minutes.
So I think it's better to be safe and avoid such journeys. After a 20-hour international flight, can we hug our loved ones on arrival, or is it risky?
No, don't do that. It was last year during the big pandemic time. Last year, somebody had come and I went to receive them at the airport, and they were just coming to give me a hug. I said, no, please don't do that to me. Don't do this to me. Just keep away. Don't give hugs. Don't touch even. Don't shake hands. You know the basics. Just because you're family does not mean you can forget your basics. And travel will really be risky. International travel is extremely risky. You are probably heavily contaminated at that point. So don't do this.
If we are fully vaccinated, is it safe to travel abroad?
It is safer in some ways. You need to have 2 doses of vaccine, and you should be at least 2 weeks out from your second dose. That is the time your protection is highest. One of my friend's parents were traveling to US, so they made sure they had that much time limit of 2 weeks after the second dose, and then they flew and they actually arrived safely. They took all the precautions, but that is the best way of traveling internationally or anywhere travel. Your risks of getting infection or falling sick after infections are much lower after vaccination.
To minimize the infection risk during traveling, is a double mask and a face shield good enough along with sanitization, or should we wear a PPE kit?
I wouldn't suggest a PPE kit. You would really look bad. Don't do that. Just wear a good mask. I actually prefer an N95 mask if you can tolerate an N95 mask. I wear an N95 mask every single day. The best masks are the N95 masks. But a mask is only good enough if it is worn properly. No matter what type of mask, if half the people have it below their nose, or they take it out and they talk, and that doesn't work. So wear it properly. If possible, N95 mask. Sometimes some people say double masking is good. Double masking, I think I would recommend only for like a cloth mask. A good N95 mask really doesn't need a double masking. Sometimes 2 surgical masks are given, but there's not good evidence that definitely double masking helps. What is more important is wearing it properly and wearing it all the time.
But also the shield on top, which
the shield does help, but
airlines do anyway.
The shield really is helpful only if somebody is really close to you and talking to you or coughing on you. Otherwise, the shields are not necessarily that important. So you can wear it if you want, but that's not as important.
What precautions should one take when staying in a hotel?
In a hotel, you stay in your own room. Don't go in and mingle with too many people. If you have to go down to eat, go at odd times or order room service. That's most preferable. Any clothes, whatever they bring, the laundry and the sheets, all of those are safe. I don't feel any problem with that. Using the bathrooms in your hotel room is all safe. That's no risk in that.
Is double masking required when alone in the car?
Different governments have given different guidelines. In my opinion, there is no need for a mask if you're traveling alone. Not even one mask is required if you're traveling alone. The virus comes if you're around people. And if you have your windows up, there's nobody around, there is a zero chance of you contracting the infection. Where will the virus come from?
The other question is about the fact that they say now that the virus is not droplet borne and it is airborne. So when driving in a car or riding a bike, if I pass by somebody or even when I'm walking, somebody sneezes or coughs before me or crossing me, what happens? Does the virus get transmitted?
No, the airborne thing has been, it's a controversial term. In only some circumstances actually it becomes airborne. And the circumstances really are like in an ICU or a really closed scenario where the particles will remain suspended in the air because of no airflow or air movement. It is not in an outdoor scenario. In an outdoor, there is really no reason to suspect an airborne transmission. It's still a droplet transmission which happens in close distance, close proximity. So I don't think we need to be worried about traveling on a bike and somebody's coughing in front of you and you're going to get it. Still, it is advisable to wear a mask at all times when you're traveling outside because you are exposed. You should wear a mask at all times. Inside the car, I don't think that is necessary if you're by yourself. If you're with a driver, yes, you should wear a mask.
So I think those are all the questions for now. Doctor, this was a very, very useful and interesting discussion, and thank you so much for joining us on this session. If there are any more questions, viewers, you can put it on the comments or on the Facebook Messenger. So with this, we will conclude our session with Dr. Parigala. And I thank you all viewers for being here today. We will meet tomorrow, same time, and we're going to discuss about the ideal post-COVID recovery plan with Dr. Vinay from Apollo Hospitals. So till then, I'd like you to stay safe, take care, and follow all the COVID precautions, especially when you're moving about, as doctor said. And I also wanted to say that I don't know if you're aware, but Apollo Hospitals is combating the pandemic. And as the number of cases rise, so too are our efforts. So we have the project Kavach. Kavach means a shield, and this is meant to completely shield you and help you to prevent and also get treated and recover safely from COVID-19. We have a strong digital backbone and our prowess in telemedicine and our robust COVID-19 treatment protocols. So this Apollo Kavach initiative offers you a 360-degree protection from COVID-19. It has several interesting initiatives like Stay iHome, Stay iHotel, Dr. Connect. So if you'd like to know more about it, please contact 1-860-500-0202 to know more. Please stay safe, take care, see you tomorrow, and don't forget SMS, which is social distancing, wearing a mask, and sanitizing. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, thank you.